more second here. Hey everyone, welcome to another recording of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. I'm Paul Lathrop. Joining me for tonight's broadcast, on my right, Amanda Suffecool of Eye on the Target Radio. Below her, Charlie Cook of Writing Shotgun with Charlie, and about a million other things. Most of which we cannot discuss on the air because Las Vegas police is still looking for him for a few of them. But he's joining us below Amanda. And below me, Kerrie Ann Auclair. She is a firearms instructor. And you are one of the hosts of, and please forgive me, what is the name of your new show again, Kerrie Ann?
Oh, sure. It's Sisters in Arms, a firearm story.
I remembered the Sisters in Arms. The rest of it... Yeah, I'm getting old. So
it's okay.
As we get started, before I hit the record button and we actually turn this into a real podcast, I want to remind everybody, if you're watching on the Polite Society Facebook or YouTube feeds, comment on those videos. We'll get those comments up. And if you're watching us anywhere else, go to Twitter and tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet. Coming up in our interview segment at about 10 after the hour is going to be Larry Correa. He is the author of the new book that comes out tomorrow, In Defense of the Second Amendment. Also, he's the guy that did the Monster Hunter International series. And I'm going to try hard not to fanboy when I start interviewing him. So, if everybody on my team is ready... I think I need to scroll up to the beginning so I can read what I'm supposed to read when we start. Are we ready to go, guys? All right. In that case, Masad Ayub in 5, 4, 3.
Hey, gang. This is Masad Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. And I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hi, and welcome to the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. We're recording this one on Monday, January 23rd, 2023. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm Amanda Suffecool, and Paul has already stolen my thunder. So there we go. But on tonight's show, I'm going to reiterate that Larry Correa is going to be joining us to talk about his book, In Defense of the Second Amendment. And then he's going to be joining Charlie on his show for it and on my show for it. And I'm sure on Kerrie Ann's show. He's going to be everywhere. But, okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm Kerrie Ann Auclair, and we're going to be talking about ex-boyfriends and a failed order of protection.
I'm Charlie Cook, and we'll talk about Alec Baldwin finally getting charges for his negligent discharge. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 648 of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast starts right now. Hey, and we're back. It's Monday night at 6 p.m. in the Central Time Zone, the only time zone that matters. That means it's time for another Polite Society podcast. Rob is not here tonight, so I can't say, Rob, what's been up with you? I'm going to say, Amanda, what's been up with you since the last time you were on Polite Society podcast?
Well, we were at SHOT Show, and that was the biggie. It was amazing. 36 miles for someone who had bruised the heel of her foot. So as a crippled gal, it was not tons of fun for that, and because you walk a ton in Vegas. We did lots of interviews, did a radio segment live in Alaska, and then walked the show floor to see what was new and different and unique. And then the second thing is the NRA ballots are out. The ballots are out. I'm so excited. So, did I say I was running for the board of directors of the NRA?
Oh,
Just in case.
Not yet. You need to do it again.
Hey, Charlie, what's going on with you?
In case anybody hasn't been paying attention, Amanda is running for the board of directors for the NRA.
And the ballots are out.
Probably appreciate your vote.
And the ballots are out.
If you're a life member or a member for 5 consecutive years or more, you can vote for Amanda Suffecool, a great choice for NRA board of directors.
I only need 50,000 votes.
It's not you can vote for Amanda. You should vote for Amanda.
Oh, thank you.
You got my vote.
Words mean things. I was also at SHOT, and I just tried looking on my phone. I saw that Amanda went 36 miles on her crippled foot, and I checked out the pedometer on my phone, and it wanted my fingerprint and photo verification because it didn't know who I was. This is my first...
Obviously, you do not track any exercise. I'm not even judging. I'm not judging, Gerald.
You have to exercise to track your exercise.
Not judging.
That's okay, Judgy Judgerson. Anyway, this year was my first day at the media range. I got to go in as part of the Eye on the Target media team, and I got to shoot a CK12 gauge, which I thought was a lot of fun. John Petrolino and I were guests on 4 different radio shows while we were there. And this past weekend, I actually did a Utah class, the second class in the second state this month. Take that, Tony Simon. Kerrie, what has been happening with you and the Sisters in Arms?
Oh, gosh. So we're just really excited. This has been quite a journey for the last 4 years. So we just actually recorded our 5th and 6th episode, and we're already going to be recording the 7th and 8th in a week or so. So I'm excited. On YouTube now, so bless you.
All right. Very cool. Now, when do these release, the ones you just recorded?
They will be releasing hopefully tomorrow. The 5th one will be on YouTube hopefully tomorrow, the next day. So it comes out
on the 5th one.
So the 5th one's actually just Renee and I. We're talking about license to carry in Massachusetts and the process of it and how to find a range. And then the 6th one is education, all the importance of education after you get your license to carry. So we could go into that. And then the following month is going to be Teal for 2A. And we are excited to announce that Diana Moeller is going to be on. Hopefully we can get that up and running. She's going to be doing it through Zoom. And then the following episode will be Jim Wallace from Gun Owners Action League, and he's going to be joining us. So we have a lot of exciting things. Awesome guests. So
very cool. Very cool.
That's wonderful.
On my end, I've just been doing bullets and doing polite society. Nothing really new or exciting for me, other than planning for the trip to the Virgin Islands that is coming up next month.
Shut up.
And I had to put up with innumerable pictures from SHOT Show. I had to put up with a whole bunch of, I'm having the time of my life. I'm drunk as heck. You know what? I
don't remember sending those.
I think I saw Holly rapping as well. Wasn't she doing a little rap song too?
Yes, Holly invented this thing called Uber Okie, is what we're calling it. It's where she starts singing and rapping with the Uber driver as we're riding around Vegas.
Yeah, she makes new friends.
Tell me there wasn't alcohol involved there. I dare you.
The driver was sober.
Oh, thank God.
Right.
So I will say this, Paul. As much as I know you felt a little bit envious that we were posting pictures from SHOT. We don't have to see you on in a string, in a thong bikini at the beach. So you don't have to share those pictures.
I'll trade that in for a Speedo.
Oh, perfect.
Cool.
There you go. That's much better. That would be much better. Yeah.
He's saying turnabout's fair play. Ouch.
My eyes are already hurting.
we have one of my idols waiting, and so I want to get out of here. I want to go to break so we can come back, and I want to interview Larry Correa about his new book. Hang on, everybody. We'll be right back right after we hear from ACLDN.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Givens, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by network president Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the interview segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining us today, Larry Correa. He's the author. Well, let me back up. When I got introduced to Larry Correa's books, it was Monster Hunter International. And he's the author of the new book, In Defense of the Second Amendment. And I am so pleased, Larry, to have you on the air today, man. Thank you for coming.
It's my pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
So,
thank you for having me on.
Oh, yes, sir. Of course. My first question is you are super successful in fiction writing. The Monster Hunter International is, despite your downplaying it on social media, it is a huge book series. I'm so pleased that you've become successful in fiction writing. Now you're come out with a nonfiction book in defense of the Second Amendment. Why the switch?
It's actually before I was a writer. I've been a writer for about 12 years now, 13 years, and I've been pretty successful. I've written 25 novels. They've done pretty good. But before that, I was actually in the gun business. That's my background. I was SOT, Title VII. I was a machine gun dealer and suppressor guy. I was a concealed weapons instructor for many years. I was actually one of the busiest ones in my state for a long time. I've been an instructor in other capacities too. I'm a lifelong gun rights guy. I love firearms. I love the culture. Heck, I wrote my first novel while I owned a gun store, and I gun nutted it up because I actually self-published it and sold it on internet gun forums. So, that's my background. And I wound up doing this nonfiction in defense of the Second Amendment because one of my editors, my fiction novels, had gone to work for Regnery, which is a nonfiction publishing house. And they decided in the aftermath of the Bruen decision, or the Bruen decision was coming up, that they wanted to get a In Defense of the Second Amendment book written. And they started talking and said, well, who is the guy? Who is the best guy we know who can write well and, articulate good arguments for regular people and tell a story and also write us a book in a month who also really knows guns? And so they invited me to do this. And honestly, as a passion project, I would have did this for free. Don't tell them that now. But I love this stuff. I am a passionate defender of the Second Amendment. I've argued for it for many years. I'm probably one of the gun nuttiest guys in fiction. I very write for the gun culture, to the gun culture. I'm probably one of the more successful. I'm probably one of the only authors that does book signings at SHOT Show for science fiction novels. You know what I mean? And but I wanted to just be able to write this book and try to help move the needle a little bit with the fit sitters, and also to help people who are on our side who are passionate about it but can't articulate good arguments. So it comes out tomorrow. I'm very excited.
It does. I actually have it on pre-order on Audible. I do all my books because I do a lot of driving. I do all my books on Audible. I've got oodles of your books, And that one I pre-ordered when it was first available. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to my team because there's 4 of us, and I know more than just me want to ask you questions. Who
Okay, so when you're, as you're looking at the Bruin case, how much do you think Bruin's going to peel back gun laws? Is it going to, do you think it's just going to empty out the shells of each one of these gun laws, or do you think it's going to take down the NFA, take down the 1968 serialization, take down the 18-year-olds, that kind of stuff?
My biggest concern on how much we can accomplish with it will be how fast we can get stuff cycled through the courts before the court changes. Because as it's constituted right now, where we've got Alito and Thomas, we've gotten really solid logic and solid stuff out of this. And it's interesting to me because we had the Bruin decision, and they basically struck down all these unconstitutional concealed carry laws, all the May issue laws. And immediately we're seeing this spike in all these states now, like Illinois, New York, Maryland, Colorado as of today, all trying to shove through wacky new gun laws that fly in the face of Bruin. And it's going to be really curious to see what happens as these are challenged. The new ATF brace ruling is going to be really interesting to see what happens there, because they're trying to say that, under Miller, these are militia weapons, because the M4 carbine, if it was a civilian gun, would be a 14-inch barrel. It'd be an SBR, right? And so they're telling us that that's not a militia weapon. And then as far as Bruin talked about common and useful. And you can't tell me that if we've sold tens of millions of these braces, that they're not common. And so it's going to be really interesting to see.
They're saying the number of those is 40 million. And that the average person who owns one owns 4. And so, that's pretty common.
When the ATF, I read all 293 pages of that horrible thing repeatedly now because I've been on so many radio shows. I don't want to screw something up while people are counting on me for good information. But it's been interesting to me because the ATF says there's only 3 million. That's the ATF's estimation. I have friends that are in the industry who work for various gun companies, and they just laugh. They laugh and laugh when they hear that number because it's so absurdly low.
The manufacturers know what they manufactured, but at this point, I don't think that they're going to roll out and say, well, look, somebody has, So they're going to let the ATF run with the number that they believe, so that they're not telling on their friends, if you will.
Yeah, one theory I saw was somebody said, I think the ATF is underestimating the number on purpose. That way when people don't comply, because a large percentage of people aren't going to comply, or they're not even going to know about this if they don't keep up on podcasts like this, they're not even going to know to register this stuff. And what's going to happen is, if they do only get 3 million of 40 million, the ATF can pat themselves on the back and say, whoa, look how compliant and successful we are. I don't know how this is going to shake out. I'm really hoping in that 120-day window that a judge somewhere looks at all the many problems in this and throws a stay on it. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. That's just me hoping. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, I would think one of the other things, like on the SIG brace or the arm brace guns, is that there will be a lot of people who just disassemble theirs, and so then they go back to being perfectly legal, and then they have this other thing, whatever that thing is. But look at what's happening with the 18-year-olds across the country, and they're going after them. In your opinion, do you think that there is actually, I mean, the United States has had this artificial line of 18-year-olds, but nowhere in the Second Amendment does it actually say 18-year-olds. Nowhere in the documents. I mean, Ohio's Constitution says 17 to 67 able-bodied persons, and different states have different numbers. How badly do you think that the anti-gunners' heads will explode when the Supreme Court removes the age limit in its entirety?
Oh, I think that'd be wonderful. Actually, I'm kind of lucky here in my state. We actually we have 2 levels of concealed weapons permit. We actually have constitutional carry now too. But on our concealed weapons permit, we have a regular permit, which is a 21-year-old permit. But we also have a provisional permit you can get when you're 18. So it's actually kind of cool. Well, most states don't have that, but here it's at 18 years old, you can go ahead and start exercising your full adult legal Second Amendment rights. I think the age cutoff is kind of silly entirely, because my 18-year-old, I have 4 kids and 3 are adults, but my 18-year-old son is a great gunsmith. That's what kept him out of trouble in high school. Was since he's been about 14 years old, I've been providing him with cheap AR-15 parts off of every internet sale and Black Friday sale. He gets another bucket of gun parts, and it's bizarre to me to see this arbitrary cutoff of like when you're allowed to defend yourself. And the 18 to 21-year-old cutoff really bothers me when they start doing that. Because at the time, when they started pushing for that a couple years ago, after a couple high-profile mass killings, I had 2 daughters in college. And so where do you get off saying that my college-age adults, and this is during COVID, so they're essential employees out there working long hours, living adult lifestyles, living on their own, paying for college, doing their own business. Why are they less than us? Why are they lesser citizens? How is that fair? You know,
right.
And I've got teenage boys having to register for the draft, you know, and all this stuff. And it's like, I don't like the stratified, I don't like any stratification of our Second Amendment rights. And in the past, they've done it based upon race. They've done it based upon income level. They've done it upon social class. And it's basically, it's all completely arbitrary, and they'll just, any wedge they can use to split it and make it harder to exercise your rights, they'll go for it. And I think it's ironic, because the same exact people who say 16-year-olds should be able to vote, because they, you know, the younger you are, the more left you vote, that they don't want them to have guns till they're 21, but they want them to be able to vote at 16. So the hypocrisy is
their sex without their parents' approval at 6.
Yeah. So the hypocrisy of how they divide it's like anything that's an age thing that benefits my political party, I'm in favor of, and anything that doesn't, I'm against. And it's asinine. Let the 21-year-olds have the same rights as 18-year-olds. Put everybody. I mean, if we're grown-up, adult American citizens, allow us to exercise our rights in peace. But yeah, they hate that.
Okay. I'm going to toss the ball to Kerrie. Oh, sorry, Paul.
Let me get real quick. I want to mention, if you want to get a question in for Larry, comment on one of the live Facebook feeds or go to Twitter, tweet with the hashtag PS Podcast. I think I said it wrong earlier, but we did have a comment come in. Straight Up Jack off the YouTube side, as my software slowly kicks in, says, I just ordered Larry's book last night.
Thank you.
Nice. So we are doing some good here. Kerrie, did you have something you wanted to bring up?
Yes. So I know that you're in favor of arming teachers, and I just wanted to talk about that a bit, because I think it's so important. I totally agree with you. I wish that more states would definitely take that on. And I know that has saved a lot of people, but you don't hear it in the media, which is unfortunate.
That's one that's interesting to me. Yeah, okay, so I was a consultants instructor. I used to teach teachers for free. In my state, teachers in schools, if you were a Utah State school employee, I taught you for free. Regular school, university, didn't matter. Because in Utah, for well over a decade at that point, we had guns in school. We basically, if you had a valid concealed weapons permit, and you would just carry it to work like any other job. And so when I hear these people online or on the news talking about we can't have armed people in school because that would just lead to all these horrible, awful things, it's like, no, they don't. We have that here. We've had it here forever. It's actually stopped altercations. And when I say that I'm an advocate for armed teachers, I don't mean mandatory. I mean voluntary.
Right. I agree. Yep.
Because I would never ever mandate someone be armed if they don't have the proper mindset and they want to do that. So, in my case, these years I was teaching teachers, what I discovered is pretty much every school has a couple people at least that are dedicated, intelligent, hardcore, trained. They're gun people. They're gun people anyway, and they want that responsibility. Let them be that speed bump. Because what we always see stops violent encounters is a violent response. So if you have a mass killing type event going on, it's going to continue until there's a violent response. That violent response can either come from somebody who's there or close by, or it could come from the police. And if it comes from the police, it could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour and a half. And while that clock is running, kids are getting hurt. And so why not let those teachers be that
their
speed
first responder? Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we've seen this not just in schools, but everywhere. It's honestly, concealed carry, to me, is one of the greatest things ever as far as defending the populace, because I delve into the numbers in the book a lot about what percentage of shootings take place in gun-free zones. And sometimes the killers, they don't really have any coherent thought. They're just acting because the voices in their head told them to. They don't really; those guys aren't making plans. But most of them are actually pretty analytical. And the ones that are seeking fame and notoriety and power, they're going to go to the places where they can do the most killing, the longest, and get the highest body count so they get on the news. We've even had them flat out say that in their manifestos. Like I'm going to go to this place and shoot these people because I know the ones that are allowed to have a gun, so I'm fine. I'm good till the cops get there.
I think that happened with the movie theater shooting. That guy was actually looking for a gun-free zone, and he found...
Yeah, the Colorado Batman.
Aurora, Colorado. He drove past 3 movie theaters to get to that one.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Wait, I know some other ones too. The recent one in New York last year, upstate New York, I believe it was Buffalo. Very specifically in his manifesto, was like, I'm going to go to this place and shoot people because I know that the regular people can't shoot me back. They have, and sure enough, he did. And this always happens. And so, why should we make schools this perfect place for bad guys to attack? It's a hunting preserve of innocent people. It's ridiculous. And so, I'm a huge proponent of armed teachers. I got experience with that. I was teaching a class, and I had a principal, a couple of teachers, and janitor/bus driver came to class. And what it was is they had an event a couple weeks before where a kid had brought a gun to school. Stuff kind of went sideways, and their resource officer wasn't there. He was AWOL. So the cops weren't there. The principal and the teachers handled it. Fired. Luckily, they talked the kid down. He got arrested afterward. Taken care of. But that teacher looked at that situation, or that principal looked at that situation and said, you know what, we were on our own, guys. No one's coming to save us. It's up to us, and these are our kids. So he went out amongst his staff, and he said, kind of on the down low, like, who here is into guns? Who here is willing to get trained? Who here is willing to do this responsibility? And sure enough, he found these other teachers that were. And in fact, the janitor was a young guy. He was a recently returned Iraq vet who had extensive training and experience already provided by the U.S. government. So why wouldn't I want this guy armed at school? It's a no-brainer.
Right.
Yeah, it really is. We see we see plenty of stories about teachers who, like the teacher that was shot by the 6-year-old a couple weeks ago. She was shot, and she still was able to tell her kids to leave the classroom. There was I want to say it was Uvalde, where there was a big guy that was a gym teacher that went in and tried to stop the guy, and he didn't have a gun. And you talk to so many teachers, and they would do anything to protect their students, but the schools don't want to let them be armed. They'll do anything. It's like Meatloaf, right? I'll do anything, but I won't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
They're willing, and those teachers are willing to give their lives. That's the thing. And so why don't we give them the tools so they can survive?
I also think that teaching the school system about mental health too is important, and I know my school over here is very, very much part of that, and I think that's so important.
All right, I want to get one comment in here real quick, then we got to run to break. Steve on the YouTube side says almost all administrators don't care; they're more concerned with appearances. Larry, is that something you would agree with, that on the administrative side that's where the roadblocks are coming?
Absolutely. Like I said, if there's 2 or 3 teachers in every school that are willing to carry a concealed weapon in defense of their kids, there's probably 10 administrators who will throw a fit about it. When we fought this fight legislatively, I was concealed weapons instructors that testified before the state legislature about having guns in universities. And our opponents were actually the Utah Educators Association, the union, and the Utah PTA. And so it's interesting. So on one side, we had all these people who actually understand armed self-defense. We had police officers. We had all these people who understand how this stuff works saying one thing. And then you had the other side of the debate where, but my feelings. And that was the first time in my life I got to watch these people just turn the tears on demand. And it was kind of horrible to watch. It was very educational for me as a young gun nut. But a lot of administrators are more worried about covering their butts, and they're worried about politics. And a lot of the people who wind up in that position tend to swing one way overwhelmingly politically. But like I said, we're lucky here because this was actually a state-level law pushed through by our Attorney General. At the time, it was Attorney General Mark Shurtleff is who pushed this through. And actually, and ever since then, so Utah has kind of been an experiment on that other states can look towards. I know it's tragic, like in Texas, they had the Uvalde shooting, but the way it's set up in Texas is, yes, you can have guns in school, but it's on a district-by-district basis. So it's up to, I believe, the school superintendent. And so if your local school superintendent says no, then you're out of luck. So there are armed districts in Texas and others that are unarmed. But like Uvalde, and that's a situation where it was the worst police response we've seen in modern times. And the lawyers told me to keep saying allegedly as I said that in the book. So I have to put that on there. Regnery's lawyers they had to go through this book quite a bit to make sure we don't get sued. But yeah, so allegedly the worst police response in modern history.
Right. You're muted, Paul.
Sorry about that. Larry, we do need to run to break. Can I have you hang out for one more segment with us?
Sure thing.
All right, folks, we are going to step aside to break. When we come back, we've got more with Larry Correa. Hang on, right back, right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off.
All right, we are back. This is the second interview segment with Larry Correa. This is a Polite Society podcast powered by the Second Amendment Foundation. 4 years ago, you'd think I'd get it right by now. Anyway, Larry, next question I wanted to ask you. I was too busy preparing this question in my mind. I got to read a small segment of your book today. And one of the things I want you to talk about is, well, you don't want a gun because you're 43 times more likely for the bad guy to take that gun away from you and use it against you. You had one of the best responses to this that I seen in the excerpt from your book. You want to go for it, man?
Sure. One of the things I do in this book is I call it the do something chapters, where I go through all the things that people want to, they want to do something, all the well-intentioned things. And I think I did a pretty exhaustive look of every single argument that gets thrown at us, every single stereotype, every single thing they throw out there. And I also use this one as a perfect example of how people lie their butts off, because that is a pretty famous study that's been around for quite a while. I'll get to how long here in a second. But if you have a gun in the home, you're 43 times more likely to be killed than you are to shoot a burglar. And it's in the year 2023, they're still repeating that. Okay, so this study is from like 1984 or 1985. It got debunked by like 1986 because his methodology was garbage, his sample size was nothing, his math was wrong, and even the guy who came up with it walked it back to a much less insane but still bullcrap number. To put this in perspective, when I was writing the book, Top Gun was in theaters. When they came up with this argument, Top Gun was in theaters.
Yeah.
and it's been debunked, yet the anti-gun side doesn't care. They don't care about truth, facts, reality, or anything. It's just, that sounds emotional, that sounds good, we're going to toss it out there. And every time they toss it out there, we still waste our time telling people, no, that's wrong. And then they don't care. And a week later, they'll be arguing with somebody else on Twitter, and they'll throw it out again because, truth and facts don't matter to them. So when we're arguing this stuff, I wrote this for people who aren't you can't help the people who are liars and the willfully ignorant. Like they're ignorant on purpose. I had somebody ask me today, is like, so you're going on these radio shows, Larry? Are you on any left-wing talk things or regular news things? I was like, oh, of course not. Because what it is the people who are the true gun banners, they don't want to know, because if they have actual knowledge, they'd have to use actual terms and actual reality and propose laws that obey the laws of physics. And instead, if they're ignorant, they can do whatever they want and pat themselves on the back and say, look, we're doing something, we're trying, we're the good guys. Even when their laws go completely backwards and hurt the people they're trying to supposedly help, they don't care. It's a feature, not a bug. And then there's the second contingent of anti-gun people who are just kind of like, I hate to say this, but in the words of the Soviets, they're the useful idiots. They're the people who are told this stuff and they believe it, and it sounds emotional and good, so they go along with it. And so some of those you can reach, usually family and friends exposing them to guns and reality. But honestly, I think the culture is shifting. I think 2020 was one of the worst years ever for crime, because we reversed 30 years of downward trend in murders. We went for 30 years, we're going down on murders until 2020, where we jumped back to the 1993 level murders in 1 year. It was just insane. It was our summer of fiery, mostly peaceful protests and no law and order. That year had insane record gun sales across the board. I mean, you could talk to every FFL in America, they'll say the same thing. They had a line out the door. And it wasn't us buying those guns. Because, you guys, we don't pay scalpers prices. We don't wait in line, right? We got ours. In case of emergency, like, I've got years and years and years of parts guns here. I'm doing okay. So it was new people. It was people who, they were watching the news and they'd see America's cities on fire, and they'd see the police, the state that they thought was going to protect them. And the state says, hey, don't call 911. We can't come. You're on your own. Good luck. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, these people who had never thought of that before were like, oh, wow, I'm it. I'm my only line of defense. It's up to me. And so we saw this huge jump in gun sales. And so no matter how much the other side lies and fabricates and preys on emotion, when the chips are down, people realize that they don't want to get killed. They don't want to get murdered. And so they're going to do what they need to do to defend themselves. And so, the last couple of years were awful, but in one bright side of that, we really did get a lot of new gun owners here, people who we can reach out to, we can get trained, we can get brought up and get them on the right path. And those people, some of the people I wrote this book for, hoping it would actually help them. So, that was a very long answer for for that question. I kind of ramble.
No, it makes so much sense. It's sort of like Dr. John Lott just came out with some data. I'm sure it's been out, but I just saw it this week. About 1% of the United States counties had something like 40% of the United States homicides. Some number like that. And so it's like, you don't even have to add police everywhere. If you would just spot add in those places what you could do for crime. But we're not going to do that, because that looks like that we're profiling certain neighborhoods or certain communities or certain things.
Yeah, one of the things I respond to in the book, because they always like to do an apple and oranges comparison where they compare America to other countries. And there's kind of this narrative that, oh, America is so super violent, it's such a violent criminal place, and such a, they always say, a gun problem. No, actually not. If you look at America, it's actually a very safe country. Most of America is like Canada. And then you have a handful of zip codes. I don't even say cities. It's not even cities. It's zip codes within cities. Mm-hmm. It's just individual neighborhoods that if you pull out this handful of a lot, I mean, the guy is brilliant. You pull out the one that's almost half your murders. Like, I've seen people sell Chicago, gun nuts like to say this has a super high murder rate. It's really not that high per capita. What they don't tell you is the reason that Chicago's murder rate per capita is not that high is because it's a huge area that covers a lot of neighborhoods. But if you look at Chicago, most of Chicago, you look at a crime map of Chicago, which I talk about in the book, and I have a link to it in my book, it's actually pretty safe. Most of the neighborhoods in Chicago are pretty safe. But you've got like 6 or 7 neighborhoods that is basically Afghanistan or Juarez. It is literally murder central. And it's just spread out over 3 million people, I think, and so that lowers the per capita number. But it's the same thing. If you look at every state, what you usually find is there's always going to be some trouble area. Most of the time, vast majority of the time, it's going to be some area in one of the big blue cities. There are some rural counties in America that have super high murder rates, but those are few and far between compared to the urban ones. But it's not that America has a gun problem. We do have a crime problem, but they like to blame it on guns, even though those tend to be the places with the lowest per capita legal gun ownership and the strictest gun laws. Whereas it come out here to my cowboy county, we haven't had a murder here. I think we've had one murder in the last century. Yet I would say probably 90% of the people around me are armed. Every house has guns. My neighbors blow up tannerite all the time. I mean, we just hear the rumble through the mountains. That's just how it is.
It's things you can do in free America, but not in occupied territory.
Yeah, I hear a lot of full auto out here. You know, this is how it is. That's where I live. It's great. Oh, Paul, you're on mute.
Still on mute. I'm sorry. I had a coughing fit a little bit ago. Lots latest findings: some 73% of murders in the U.S. took place in 5% of the counties, while 52% of all counties reported no murders at all. And that just backs up your point, Larry. While we're here, and we've got just this time does fly by. We've got a few more minutes with you. If I could, I want you to talk. One of the other things that was provided in the press release kit was you wanted to talk about red flag laws. Could we get into that a little bit?
Yeah, that's because I go back over basically the last 30 years of gun rights arguments, and red flags are one of the new ones. Most of them are recycled. They've been done over and over again. Red flags are a relatively new one, and it's one of those that appeals to emotion and doesn't hold up to logical scrutiny. And they're incredibly ripe for abuse. So for people who don't know, a red flag law is an ERPO, extreme something protective order. It's basically the idea is that someone can report someone to the police as being dangerous and armed. And it's theoretically to stop your potential mass killers. So police get a report, and they say, okay, this guy we have a testimony this person is dangerous, and all it takes is a judge to say, okay, we're going to go take this guy's weapons away. Now, it's hard to generalize because this is not a federal thing. This is a state. There's federal funding, but it's a state thing, and so every state is a little bit different how they do it. But how most of them shake out is that it doesn't take much to report someone. And so basically we've given the worst people in the world license to screw with somebody they don't like. Imagine the people that report all your posts on the internet and get you kicked off of social media. We just gave them the ability to send us. No, not at all. I got banned the other night for reviewing Puss in Boots, and I gave it a positive review and got a ban. It was a good movie. But we basically these people now can weaponize law enforcement against you. And then if you think about it, this is where it gets really sticky. So you get the cops come out, they raid your house at 3 o'clock in the morning, take your firearms away, even if it was just a crank, it was like an angry ex-spouse or a disgruntled employee. We've seen those. We had one case in Colorado where a police officer shot somebody in the line of duty. It was ruled a justified shooting, and the guy who got shot, his mom reported the cop for a red flag violation, and he got rolled up in this for a shooting in the line of duty. And think about it, he's got a department attorney, and he's got a police union that's helping him out. Regular people don't have that. Nope. So that's the abuse side. But then there's the logical part that falls apart. So let's say you do have someone who's a danger to themselves and others. The state already has the ability to commit, all 50 states have the ability to commit someone who is a danger to themselves and others. But they don't bother because it's usually kind of hard. It's messy. So instead, you red flag them, cops come in, take their guns. If they are actually a disgruntled, angry person, they're still a disgruntled, angry person. You just raided their house. They're probably going to be more disgruntled. Well, they're still free. And there's nothing stopping them from going out and getting an illegal gun, which is where most crime guns come from, is they're stolen or bought off someone who stole them. Or he could go to Home Depot and build a bomb, or he could drive his car through a parade. Yep. He's still a disgruntled, angry, dangerous individual. So I think it's one of those programs that appeals to emotion, and it was so disappointing to see so many Republicans in the Senate go along with this. Some of the guys that pay lip service to gun rights and protecting people's rights were all about providing federal funding for something that would come in and take people's rights away with no due process and no constitutional protections.
And I had some conversations with several of them, and they're like, oh, we're not really. We're just providing the funds for the states. Should the states decide that that's what they need to do?
Yeah, because you think about it, how often does the federal government give a state money, free money, and that state doesn't take advantage of it?
Right. And you can't call him Senator Jackwagon, but I sure wanted to.
We do have to, I promised I would let you go early, Larry. I didn't want to take up all your night, but I got to get one more comment in here. Before I do, I'm going to remind you this is a family show, but the comment says, was that the adult version of Puss in Boots?
No, it was the regular one. I watched it with my kids. It was a good movie, and then I posted a positive review on it, but what I said was, the actor who played the bad guy played Pablo Escobar in Narcos, and apparently you're not allowed to say Pablo Escobar on Facebook, is what I've been told, and I'm not, because I've been banned. I'm on my 13th 30-day ban, so apparently I can't say it.
Well, and of course, just as your book is getting set to come out is when they pick to drop the ban hammer again. Every time. Like I said, this is book... Yeah, this is book number 26, and I've been banned for probably half of those. Larry, thank you again. On our way out, if you would tell people, I know it's on Amazon because it's on Audible, and they do, that's one and the other together. But if people want to get your book, how do they do it, man?
Sure. It's In Defense of the Set, and it is available in bookstores everywhere. It is Barnes & Noble, Amazon, your local store. Some gun stores are carrying it, which is very cool. And it's just available everywhere. And if you're interested in getting it, honestly, if you buy it during release week, that really helps me because that boosts the stats. The release week for a book is the most important in book sales because that's kind of where it determines where you're at and how many people restock it and that kind of thing. So it's much appreciated. And thanks for letting me talk about it.
Absolutely. And I lied. One last comment. I got to get this in from Jack Neat. He says, "Stop! Too much common sense. My head's gonna explode." Again, Larry, thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, Larry. Bye.
Thank you. Folks, we're going to step aside to break. We're going to hear from JPFO. When we come back, we've got our news segment. We'll get to that right after this.
In 1928, Germany required its citizens to register their firearms, making possible Hitler's 1938 Nazi Weapons Act, disarming all Jews. Now ask yourself, what is the real consequence of registration? All in favor of gun control, raise your right hand. to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, America's aggressive civil rights organization. jpfo.org.
And welcome back. This is the news segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Getting started, and we've got a lot of news to cover, but we're not going to get to all of it. I'll just about promise you that. First off, Illinois' new gun ban cannot be enforced for more than 860 individuals who sued in state court in Effingham County after a judge issued a temporary restraining order on Friday. Attorney Thomas DeBoer filed a lawsuit seeking to block the gun ban Tuesday, a week after Governor J.B. Pritzker enacted the law. Exempted from the law were active and retired police officers and others in security and law enforcement industry. DeVore argued during an emergency hearing on Wednesday the new law violates equal protections of rights, and Judge Joshua Morrison agreed with that and issued his ruling on Friday. So for these 860 individuals in Illinois, the new law does not apply to them, specifically in Effingham County. I honestly believe, and I'll open this up to the rest of you, I honestly believe this is the first little drop in a torrent of lawsuits that are going to go against the state of Illinois, at least 3 of which are SAF lawsuits.
So what you're saying, though, is that the law applies to everyone else who did not file a suit? I thought when they issued a stay, they issued the stay for everybody, that these people spoke for all.
My understanding is that it only applies to these 860 individuals who filed the suit.
Really?
That's...
Huh. That's a curious question, and I think we'll have to dig a little deeper, because I question that.
This coming Friday on the Bullet is Alex Uli's day.
You better write that one down as a question. Amanda has a question, and that's it. Because this crazy law prohibits the sale of more than 170 different style semi-automatic firearms and their magazines, and requires a gun registry. So, I mean, this is putting Illinois, as crazy as it is, right up there with California, where every time they add a gun to their gun approved list, they take 2 off. So pretty soon, by adding one, they're going to not have any.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be nice. That would absolutely be nice. Yeah, it's certainly not fair for the rest of the firearm owners in the state of Illinois to that these people that they can keep on whatever. They can keep on going on.
That they
it doesn't
get to
affect
stay.
everybody.
Yeah, I didn't think that that's how that worked. So
I know at the beginning of the COVID times, there were a lot of counties in Illinois where the sheriff said, you know what, you get this, no, excuse me, it was oh my gosh, when did Illinois go to having a permit? 2013. When it was finally legal, and they said, hey, listen, you know what, Illinois is going to allow its law-abiding background check passing responsible citizens to be able to carry, and then the state was like, wait, we don't have any rules and regulations, and we don't have any permits. There were a lot of counties in Illinois that came out and said, okay, if you've got a FOID card, we'll take it.
Right. I mean, I could see if the stay was issued for the county. I mean, because it's generally a scoop, but it's not generally a lawsuit related. But we'll find out. We can quit belaboring that point.
Wasn't there a lot of police departments too that weren't going to follow this? They weren't going to enforce this?
Oh yeah, the majority of county sheriffs and the vast majority of county sheriffs had said, this is bunk, I'm not going to enforce it. However, the issue there is what the sheriffs would be enforcing is the registration.
Right.
And it still bans the sale of all kinds of firearms. And the sheriffs, even though they're not going to enforce, that doesn't mean that the gun shops can go ahead and keep stocking those.
And or if your sheriff says I'm not enforcing it, you get scooped up by the next county over sheriff. All bets are off. So having a law
or the state police
that a singular person says I'm not enforcing does not does not really give you any level of comfort.
Protection.
It just says
whatever,
that
right?
my guy is not going to come looking for me, but it doesn't say,
Somebody else
the rest
might not.
of them.
But
Exactly.
when more police departments stand up and say, I'm not doing this, I think more people are going to take notice. Be like, you're not.
One would hope. One would
Yeah.
absolutely hope.
Chicago Police Department would be the one I'd be looking at. When that falls, then it's done. But that'll never, ever, 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 ever happen. Let's go ahead and go on to our next one. I like this story, but Florida Representative Matt Getz introduced a bill to eliminate the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives following a ruling on pistol stabilizing braces. Getz criticized the ruling on pistol braces. Merrick Garland said that the rule enhances public safety. Getz replied the rule unfairly punished disabled gun owners and those who rely on stabilizing braces to be able to fire with one hand. The rule by the ATF was the final straw, and Getz introduced the Abolish the ATF Act, H.R. 374, on Tuesday morning of last week.
Right. Did you read the bill? I read the entire bill.
I have not. No, I'm at a disadvantage.
It is, we will hereby abolish the ATF, period. I mean, it is pretty simple.
It's finally a bill I can read. I love it.
Right. I mean, it
Exactly.
is a singular rock star sentence bill. It's rock star.
That's awesome.
Right.
Well, we talked about the story on the Bullet over the weekend,
Yep.
and it certainly does seem like grandstanding, but I think it was Tony Simon brought up the fact, he says, listen, why don't they do this when the Republicans are in control? Because then it doesn't have a chance of passing now, but when the Republicans have control of the House and the Senate, then somebody needs to start making moves like this.
Well, what happened was one other time they did this, and it got pretty far, except that no other government agency wanted to take what was remaining of the BATFE, because those people are untrained to the most part. I mean, there's always a good guy that got caught up in a bad job decision, but they're untrained and unwarranted, and so no other government agency says, sure, I'll take those agents and involve them into my agency. And so that's where they didn't. But this whole thing with the EPA and the overreach, they're going to get spanked, and they're going to get spanked multiple times here in the next year.
And not in the enjoyable spank way either.
Right.
And since when was the last time a government agent had to be trained and be specialized? And you know what? I've never met a government agent that doesn't say, yeah, I'll take that on. You get more power,
Right.
They didn't want them.
No. And isn't this, used by a lot of people who have a handicap as well? I mean, I can't understand why they would think about taking this away when so many people probably use that.
Because they're just peeling it back. They're trying to peel different things, and they can't go after the ugly black rifles, so they can go after this feature and that feature and the other feature. And so they're just trying to tear them apart feature by feature by feature.
Yeah, it's the salami method, like one slice at a time.
Yeah.
We take a little bit here, we take a little bit here, we take a little bit here, and the next thing you know, there's nothing left.
We have nothing left.
I wasn't sure where you were going with that, Charlie.
Family show.
Let it be noted that Paul was the one just a moment ago that I was on the verge of taking it off the rails, not Charlie.
Right. Well, I'm somewhat scared.
That's because it's
Charlie, do you want
gotta be a
to
side
talk about
effect from
Alec
SHOT
Baldwin,
Show.
Charlie?
Yeah, because
yes.
I'm probably going to be Ruth Bader Ginsburg with the dissenting voice on this one. So this ought to be an interesting conversation.
Oh yes, I'm ready.
All right, actor Alec Baldwin was charged with involuntary manslaughter in New Mexico. Baldwin would face up to 18 months in prison if convicted for 2 counts stemming from the accidental shooting on the set of the Western movie Rust. Armorer Hannah Reed is also facing 18 months in prison. During the filming of Rust, Baldwin was handed a loaded firearm by Assistant Director David Halls. Halls has taken a plea deal and is cooperating with the prosecution. Armorer Hannah Reed did not hand the gun to the actor. That violated the standard safety protocols for handling firearms. The armorer was outside of the set because of COVID safety rules put in place by the producers. Baldwin allegedly pulled the trigger. He shot and killed Hutchins and wounded director Joel Souza. Baldwin is an executive producer of the movie in addition to starring in it. After shooting Hutchins and Souza, Baldwin could be seen immediately calling his attorney. The accidental killing came shortly after multiple crew members quit the movie because of their concerns about the way firearms were handled on the set. We know that the armorer asked her direct supervisor for more time to train Baldwin in firearm safety. She was denied.
Well, let me modify what you and let's be honest. We wrote this up earlier. Baldwin. See here. Baldwin was seen. Let me scroll back to it.
Calling his attorney?
Yeah, Baldwin was allegedly seen calling his alleged attorney.
Attorney, right.
He could have been... Go ahead.
He could have been calling what was left of Epstein's network to try to get him out of the country.
Don't know, yeah.
I think he was calling to leave a voicemail, an angry voicemail at his daughter. That's what I'm thinking.
There you go. So here's the question. Was Alec Baldwin charged because he pulled the trigger or because he's the producer of the show?
The way this winds out is he was charged because of negligence.
But which negligence?
Well, he was charged under both producer and the person that actually pulled the trigger.
Really?
Really?
Or was it 2 counts because it's one guy hit, second guy hit?
No, there were no charges for the second person hit.
Okay. Because, so Kerrie, you're trying to get a word in edgewise, and I'm
like,
hogging
nope. I did a lot of research on YouTube and actually tried to find what the protocol was for the armor and what their responsibilities were, and it was hard to really figure it out because some armors said one thing, another armor said another thing, but ultimately, from what I gathered with all the information that I've read or seen, was it's a responsibility of both the armor and the actor to know what the safety rules is. And I didn't know that she was denied more time with Baldwin. And that's
right.
That is really...
That would be the problem. And Baldwin would be the guy who'd made the final denial. So here's what I think. I think Baldwin as the producer has culpability. I think Baldwin as the person who pulled the trigger doesn't. And here's why I think that. Because as an actor who's handed a gun that is supposed to be loaded with blanks, should he have picked up the gun and looked at it, from the back, he is looking at a loaded gun.
Yep.
Right. The only way you can tell is taking it out.
Oh, the only way he would know is to remove all the bullets and then put them back in. That wouldn't be protocol. That wouldn't be the thing. So I think Baldwin as the actor, as the trigger puller, does not nearly have the culpability that Baldwin as the producer in not making sure that Hannah Gutierrez Reed was on the set when she should have been, and not being handed the gun by someone else, not having the gun checked by her. There is that piece. But I also think that there is another person who has responsibility that they have not yet named. And that would be the person that early on in this activity, they'd said that some of the staff or some of the crew was out because they're California-based folks who don't have access to guns, was out in the New Mexico desert shooting because they could. So they were in their downtime shooting, plinking, and having a good time with that gun. So someone brought live ammo onto the set. It probably wasn't Alec Baldwin. It probably wasn't Gutierrez Reed. It was a third unidentified person at this point.
And that gun
person
is not supposed
has
to be used for
culpability.
that.
Yes, that's right.
Correct. So that's where I think, depending on where the charges are and how the charges are, how it ought to be sliced and diced. I mean, Rob and I were on the movie set for the Matthew McConaughey movie, and let me tell you that after being on that set, any firearm that would be on a movie set, if I were the armorer, that gun would be in my possession 100% of the time until I checked it, handed it to the actor, took it back, because everybody else on that movie set has no idea what gun handling, gun skills were about. I mean, we watched the extras walk around, and they kept picking up guns and trying to pull the trigger and doing stuff. I mean, I was practically tackling them on the other side of the table at the gun show scenes in that Matthew McConaughey movie. And so I cannot even imagine the responsibility associated with being the armorer. And because of COVID protocols that they kept her out, that puts more culpability associated to the producers and those who made that decision.
How come we didn't get video of you? How come we didn't get video of you trying to keep everyone away from their guns? That's what I want to see.
Oh, there was. I was like, I'm going to smack people. It was so not good, right?
I got 3 comments I want to get in here quick. First one from George, and I love George's comments. I stand behind Alec Baldwin. It's safer.
I've heard that one already.
He also came up, I heard Baldwin could be jailed for up to 5 years because the prosecutor added a firearms enhancement. I had not heard that.
I have not either. So it's going to be interesting to wait and see. I mean, and I believe that I probably see this different than a lot of people, because everybody else is like, he needs to go to jail because he pulled the trigger. I don't think that's how that works in movies.
Yeah. Did you know that they have the interviews already on Facebook? I mean, on YouTube? All the interviews with the police when he was there being interviewed. They're all on YouTube.
Really?
Well, it's public record, so if they could get to it,
I'm just surprised that, because it's still under investigation, that would be
right.
all released.
Well, it's taken them 2 years. C&T Designs. I'm with you. I know that as an actor he shouldn't. I don't know that as the producer he won't. But
I honestly believe as a producer he is in deeper due than the armorer is. And I'm not willing to say that he won't spend a day in jail. I would say 30, 60, 90 days would not be beyond. I mean, look, if the government will put, doggone it, Snoop Dogg's buddy, she would the really pretty lady that's on all the craft shows.
Oh, yeah. Martha
Stewart.
Martha
Stewart.
If the government will put Martha in there, they'll put Alec Baldwin in there.
So, first of all, to George Geller, I played with Meatloaf at Meatloaf's daughter's wedding back in 1999. That was from one of the previous shows. Yeah. He was wondering about that. My deal is this. I think he should get in trouble as the producer. After hearing Amanda talk about, him being the actor. All right, I get it.
I hate it. But
I know I do hate it. And I do think it ought to fall on the producers, because the producers are in charge of everything and they're supposed to be responsible for everything. And if someone who's not the armorer hands him the gun and the armorer didn't check it, I don't think you can put it on the armorer that it's her fault that someone picked the gun up when she wasn't there, and they're trying to follow COVID protocol. It can't be on her if she's not there and responsible for it.
Right.
No, but wouldn't you think too, though, as an actor or an actress, if you knew that you were not supposed to be using that firearm unless the armorer gave it to you, then, you know what I mean? Unless he didn't care or know that.
As an actor, he probably doesn't know that. As the producer, he's supposed to know that. So once again,
Right.
it's the producer, Alec Baldwin.
Right, but it's the same Alec Baldwin. Like, it's the hat with two bills, right?
I understand, but yeah, you kind of have to, really got to separate where culpability is, and it's the producer, Alec Baldwin.
I remember saying this when all this went down, that, I heard the stories too, that there was people from California that got into Free America and had access to a firearm, and they could buy ammunition without all the nonsense you had to go through in California. And they get out to Free America and they can't handle it. They go out to the desert and they start. I heard they were shooting rabbits or shooting targets or something, and they don't know anything about firearms, and they go out and act a little hog wild and leave ammunition in the gun. Like, I get it. And I do think that's an easy thing for them to say, but I think it ultimately comes back to Baldwin, because he's the producer of the movie, and he's the one. If he's trying to do this on a low budget, then he needs to make sure he's cutting all the costs that he needs, or making sure everyone's doing their responsible for their actions.
Okay, so CNT Design he's making a good point that anyone touching a firearm on a movie set would know the 4 rules of firearm safety. Okay, but in the movie set, he's supposed to aim the firearm in that direction. In the movie set, they're supposed to pretend that the cameraman doesn't exist. In the movie set, right? And in that situation, he expects it to be blanks. So he expects it to be loaded.
Let me turn this around. Speaking as somebody that has worked in television, that has worked with cameras, that knows how cameras work, what can and what cannot be done with angles, and what can and cannot be done with cameras. There is ways you could use a live round and make that shot 100% safe.
Exactly. If you understood and cared about guns at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the responsibility of the armorer, who they booted out the door.
Right. And the responsibility behind that is in the producer.
Bingo.
And I actually was on YouTube, and there was an armorer that said that exact same thing, Paul. So that's what I was just going to say, that the angle, they don't point directly at the person. They point it off a little bit and play with the camera angle to try to, avoid that altogether. But again,
I might know somebody that's pointed a gun at a camera several hundred rounds.
Right.
And no one was behind the camera.
And I can tell you, this person successfully fired off several hundred rounds without nary an incident.
Without ever shooting a camera. Did you guys know that Hannah Gutierrez Reed, her father was a famous trick shooter and a stuntman?
Yes.
And so she grew up in this industry completely. And so if nothing else, even if they don't, the fact that they tossed her out before they did all this, and she's standing outside, visualize her at the chain link fence going, but it's happening inside and I'm supposed to be there. And her career's over.
Yeah.
Her career, I'm going to say her career might be over. So Thel Reed, I have a Jeff Cooper book from the early 1960s, because I'm a big fan of Jeff Cooper, and Thel Reed is in that book. He looks like a kid. He's 87 years old. He's having, if you do the math on this, he was in his mid-50s when Hannah was born. And, how much work did he do in the last 25 years? I know he's been in some movies and done the armoring for some movies, but I think in the 60s and 70s he was probably doing it a lot more, and she wasn't around then. Yeah, and I think she should be, I don't think she should be responsible at all, because she wasn't able to be there because of someone else, because someone else picked up the gun, because someone else didn't check it. It's not on her if she's not there. Even though it's her responsibility, they weren't letting her be there to do her job.
I think reputation-wise, she'll never recover from this.
Yep, I would have said I'm not going to be the armorer.
I need to get her. I need to get her in the stagecoach and figure this out.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Once
There you
they
go.
finish
Can
whatever
you
they're doing
confirm
with
or deny,
prosecution.
Charlie, that President Trump is coming up in a very near future episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie?
I cannot confirm nor deny.
Oh.
I cannot.
All right. One
You
more
have to
story
bring
that
'em-
we're really going to get out of here. Sorry.
See, I told you I would make that one a long one.
I love it. I love it. Amanda Bader Ginsburg.
In a case stemming from the 2018 mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, 5 Florida Supreme Court judges on Thursday rejected a challenge to a state law that threatens stiff penalties if local officials pass gun-related regulations. The 5-1 ruling was a blow to 33 cities and counties and dozens of local officials. Doggone it. Where is my tongue tonight? And dozens of local officials who contended that penalties in the 2011 law were unconstitutional. Florida law since 1987 has barred cities and counties from passing regulations that are stricter than state laws, and the penalties of the 2011 law were designed to strengthen that preemption. The law, for example, could lead to local officials facing $5,000 fines for passing gun regulations and would allow members of the public and organizations to receive damages and attorney fees if they successfully sue local governments for improper gun regulations. We talked about this on the weekend edition of The Bullet. I just wish the Florida law went further and said that the elected city council members or county council, whatever they are, if they had to pay for this out of their personal pockets, not campaign funds, not other funds, they couldn't be donated by people like Bloomberg. If it had to come from the personal checking account of the 3 of the 5 that approved it, then it would be even more effective.
Well, the good news is it actually says that they can fine the local official themselves and not the government.
Yep.
So it's not that they're suing the county. It's not that they've got the protection of the state. So the state reps or the state senators. They've got a personal responsibility for this.
Good, and if they have to pay, then so be it. Like you're a right right delayed is a right denied, and if you're stopping somebody from someone from their constitutional right, someone needs to be responsible.
Florida is leading the way in free America.
I love it.
I will say if they get permitless carry, real permitless carry, maybe they'll be getting close.
There you go.
One comment.
You say that, but we're gonna get your governor as our president or vice president. Just hang on.
I think so too.
That could happen. Let me get this comment up here quick on our way out the door. Trump in riding shotgun with Charlie would be great. The only thing is Charlie would need to get a lot bigger vehicle for all the Secret Service that'd be going along.
Oh, yes.
I'm kind of concerned that he would kind of reach over and grab the wheel while I'm driving too.
All right.
That's funny.
Let's do this. Let's step aside to break. We've got to do and we've got to do a defensive gun use segment, and we're going to roll this all up in the close of the show with our next segment. So this is going to be our final break. Hang on, everybody. Right back right after this.
It all failed before. Alcohol prohibition brought us organized crime, and no less alcohol. Drug prohibition brought us murderous, no-knock, wrong house raids.
Police! Search warrant!
No, wait! The crack house is next door!
Now gun prohibitionists want laws to lead us down that same path. Don't Americans ever learn? Just ask yourself, isn't government the only beneficiary of police-state policies? Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. Information available at jpfo.org.
Welcome back to the Defensive Gun Use segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. These discussions in this defensive gun use segment are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. The defensive gun use segment is intended as information, not training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or any other affiliations. Let's go ahead and get started. First one is out of New Hartford, New York. In New York, the governor and her cronies in the legislature have made carrying a concealed weapon illegal in nearly all the state. Thankfully, some people ignore unconstitutional laws and will carry in those sensitive places. A 28-year-old man had been previously kicked out of New Hartford Applebee's for disorderly behavior. About 6:45 on a recent Saturday evening, he came back. Workers recognized him and asked him to leave. He then started fighting with the workers. He ran behind the bar and grabbed a steak knife. He then slashed the face of a worker and injured another Applebee's worker. Meanwhile, in another part of the restaurant, a patron noticed the man's behavior and took action. He pulled his concealed handgun, presented it to the man, ordered him to the ground, and instructed him to release the knife. Bad guy did as he was told. The man kept him at gunpoint until police arrived. Police arrested him and charged him with second-degree attempted assault, 2 counts of third-degree assault, and a fourth-degree criminal possession of a weapon. He was also taken to St. Luke's Hospital for a mental health evaluation. Imagine that. Now, according to the law in New York, Applebee's is a sensitive place and concealed carry is prohibited from all bars and restaurants which serve alcohol. And name me an Applebee's that doesn't. It does appear, however, that the armed citizen was not arrested by arriving officers. That does not, however, mean that he won't possibly be in trouble in the future. According to the county's assistant pistol licensing officer, when asked the hypothetical of a licensed concealed carry stopping the attack on a prohibited place, could they face charges? The person said yes. The person will probably be charged with a Class A misdemeanor. I think under the circumstances, the charge would probably go away. That's up to the district attorney's office. Guys, great DGU here in that no shots were fired. Unfortunately, the good guy with a gun could possibly run afoul in the future. Anyone want to step up and comment on this one first?
Yeah, it seems like Applebee's is the Waffle House of the North.
No chairs were thrown in the saving of these people.
Exactly. I actually talked to somebody in New York last month, and he was telling me that since it's a felony for him to carry at Walmart, it is also a felony for him to carry at a school. So he's going to carry at Walmart, and he's like, well, if it's illegal, I'm going to carry in a school too. So if I become a felon for either one of these, a felon's a felon, right? It's the whole, are you wet or underwater if you're there when it rains question. So he's like, I'm a felon at Walmart, I'm a felon at school, I'll carry in school too.
I have never heard that question.
You never heard that question? Oh, all right. So there was a song. There was a song that actually used this. They wondered, "Are you wet or underwater if you're there when it rains?" I'm going to dig this up. I'm going to share it with you guys.
Okay. Oh yeah, I think you need to.
Yes, I will.
All right, Kerrie Ann, you're up. Your name is on the next story in our show notes. Do you want to read this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, ex-boyfriend seems to always pop into the DGUs, and once again we have another one. A 30-year-old Patrick O'Brien had lived in a home while he and the female owner were a couple. But last fall he had been accused of domestic abuse and had an order of protection filed against him. The woman had moved out a few months ago, and the new resident had moved in. So at 2 a.m., he broke into the home. Once inside the home, he was met by a resident who was armed and shot and killed the intruder. Thank God the resident, and along with his 10-year-old son, were unharmed. Court records regarding the domestic abuse charge and protection order were sealed, and he was not charged. She is still listed as the homeowner on the property. So this is just goes to show you that paper is paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this O'Brien guy didn't realize that she'd moved out, and instead, unlucky him, found a new armed homeowner that was there defending his 10-year-old son, and so O'Brien is no more. How sad.
How sad.
I'm going to pull a Rob Morse here and ask if we can check the toxology report. I mean, 2 a.m., you're breaking into your ex's house. Either you're really drunk or really drunk.
Yep.
Or you're not really, going there. Or you're possibly really high. I mean.
Yeah, or decidedly in love.
That's what I was thinking. That's the other. Right.
Enhanced by alcohol or other intoxicants.
Those are your decision-making aspects, yes.
Right.
Yep.
I think you added the wrong part when you said you were possibly in love.
Oh, that's not what he was patting, huh?
And I think, yeah, right. I also think that, unfortunately, a lot of people that have a protection order really think it's an armor, and it really isn't. And I think that, situations like this could have been worse. I mean, what if she was there? What would have happened then? I mean, did he really want to go in there to do harm with her, or what? And so I think, it kind of goes to show you, and at least for people anyways, that maybe don't think about getting a firearm in that kind of situation. It's really important to get a firearm, in my opinion, or at least have an understanding of how can I protect myself while I'm training with my firearm. What can I do now? Pepper spray, big dog. I don't know. Yeah, could have been worse.
Exactly.
I want to get one more DGU in here, and we'll save the next one for next week. But Avondale, Arizona, working the graveyard shift in a 24-hour gas station can be a dangerous job. They don't call them stop and robs for nothing. A masked man stormed into a Chevron station just before 5 a.m. He mumbled the words rob and money to the clerk. Then, as the clerk said, he didn't need to say anything when he pointed the gun at me. It was obvious what he was there for. When the robber pointed his gun at customers, the clerk pulled his own gun and shot the robber. He told the TV station he had trained for such situations. Suspect became distracted by another person in the store. The store employee took the opportunity to use his own firearm, shooting and injuring the suspect, police said in a statement. The suspect was in the hospital in critical condition, and police are reviewing video from inside the store as part of their investigation. I love the fact that this clerk has claimed training. I don't know what training the clerk took, and I don't even know if it appears that the clerk was a male, but I would love to see all clerks that work overnights, when usually they're the only one in the store, get training like this. I think it's fantastic. Even if they pull a double barrel shotgun out from underneath the counter.
My initial thought is the bad guy is still alive, so maybe he needed more training.
Yeah. I won't argue with that.
Right. Absolutely.
Let me get
Danny and Cheryl. Danny and Cheryl have their business in Avondale.
Yeah, they do.
Yes,
that's where AZ Firearms was located.
Yeah.
All right. Get this comment in here. A restraining order is a piece of paper, and they work very well in court. When you are under a violent attack, and a firearm is the great equalizer.
Absolutely. Love it.
Preach it, Beckman. Preach it.
That's right.
All right. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna move straight to, without going to break. We're just that kind of flexible around here. Stick my hand up. Anyway, can't do it with the other one because I injured it in a motorcycle incident a while back. But
it's not that flexible.
Yeah, right side's pretty flexible, left side not so much. Anyway, let's get into what we've been doing in media. Amanda, I'm guessing you got a whole lot of media done at SHOT Show for Eye on the Target Radio. You want to talk about any of it?
Well, no, but I've done some pretty good interviews, and I'm putting together one on suicide, firearms and suicide, that it may take me a little longer to do, but I got to interview the head of the VA, the Department of Veterans Affairs, their suicide guy. I don't remember what his title is, but so it was pretty interesting what he was doing. And so next I want Sarah Albrecht and Hold My Guns and a couple other things, and I'm going to turn it into an entire 2-hour show on resources and things. So that it'll take me a while to do it, but I think it'll be a pretty good segment.
Nice. That's awesome.
Very cool. Charlie, man, when is that Donald Trump episode coming out?
It's soon.
Soon is a good answer. Soon's a relative term.
Exactly.
You should take him for a ride by that sign near my house.
Oh yeah, right. That'll be fun. So I've got an episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie coming out tomorrow with Diana Muller from the DC Project. I picked her up at the Wilkes-Barre International Airport back in October and drove her to the Rod of Iron Freedom Festival. So I said, hey, we've got a half-hour drive. Let's film a show. So that's going to be coming out tomorrow. A week ago, the Armed Lifestyle magazine came out, the newest issue of Armed Lifestyle magazine, and the Writing Shotgun with Charlie article features Mike Hughes and Britt Lenz from Next Level Training, and they talk about the SIRT pistols, but they also talk about this new project that they have going on, another side hustle called the Refined Savages. And they have a couple of new products. They have this one thing called the G-Spot, which is a fire starter that you stick in the grip of your Glock. And they have a thing called the Torch, which is a magazine-mounted light. And people can find that at Armed Lifestyle Magazine. And they should subscribe to Riding Shotgun with Charlie and watch the YouTube videos and download the podcast.
Very cool. Kerrie Ann, let's talk a little bit about Sisters in Arms. You did at the top of the show, but I really want you to reiterate what's coming up and what the plans are.
All right, so for people that don't know what Sisters in Arms is, it's a firearms story. And basically, we are a resource to the community of Massachusetts. And Renee and I wanted to do this show really to be a present and let people realize what firearm gun owners look like from a woman's standpoint, but also as a firearm instructor as well. So we're excited. And like I said, next month we're doing a DC project show. It's going to be Teal for 2A, and we're going to interview Jim Wallace from Goal. But I also have a meet and greet going on the end of the month, so January 28th, meet and greet for the DC project, so some folks can come down and see what we're all about. And I'm also working with Goal for a fashion show, and we will have a booth there as well. So the DC project will. So I'm excited. There's a lot of great things going on. 2023 is going to be fun.
Very cool. Very cool. Get a couple comments in here on our way out the door. George Geller, and for the George is a California guy, okay? So let me get this up. Speaking of governors, I wonder if we could trade Gavin Newsom and a senator to be named later for Kristi Noem. No, you can't. Kristi Noem is my governor here in South Dakota. She's not going anywhere. And I don't want Newsom anywhere near my South Dakota.
Didn't he, like, he was one of these people that said, hey, listen, you know what? We got these COVID restrictions going on. You can't go anywhere. And then he took off to Montana.
Yes. He absolutely did.
After he went to a restaurant that he made everybody else eat outside and took his party inside and had a big party.
Went to French Laundry and spent like $30,000 on a tab. Yeah.
Let me get one more comment in here from George. He says, I read the autobiography of a LAPD policewoman. She'd often tell the women with restraining orders the paper was worthless and they should leave town. And it's on the screen there, but he did correct it.
Yeah.
So, a piece of paper is a piece of paper.
Tough.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, if they're already motivated to commit murder, breaking the law is not going to stop them.
No.
Imagine that. They're criminals for a reason.
Yep.
Laws are a suggestion.
Yep.
To be.
The laws are for us, not for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be examples of that coming up. Tune into the Bullet the rest of this week. There's a lot of examples that we didn't get to today when Charlie and I talked about laws for thee, but not for me.
Mm-hmm.
That does wrap up another episode of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. I'd like to thank Larry Correa for joining us today. He actually had, how cool was that? Thank you, Larry. That was absolutely fun. So for Amy, Dana, Tracy, John, Susan, Amanda, Kerrie Ann, Robin, Charlie, and Rob.
Until the next time.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
Okay, we are clear of the recording. We've had a lot of comments tonight. A few of them are way too long to get on the screen because think of it as Twitter. You've got a certain character limit. And then my software cuts it off. So you can usually get 2 or 3 sentences in, but anything beyond that, I just can't get on the air because it's too long. But thank you, everybody that tuned in. Thank you, everybody that commented. I'm going to go ahead and shut the stream down now. And do come join me 5 p.m. Central Time the rest of this week. Thanks for watching, everybody.